I have dedicated my entire career to exposing the conflicts of interest and excessive and unnecessary fees in small business 401k plans. I've done this by approaching employers and letting them know what these charges are and giving them information so they could reduce them or find another service provider who charges a lot less and provides the same level of services. What I haven't done as often is make videos directly for you, the participants in the plans. If you're watching and you're a participant in these plans, I also want to empower you with enough information to go to your employer and let the employer know that there's a better way that the plan can be structured. Many participants I talk to don't understand how these plans work. And even if they do, they often don't look at their statements. And if they do look at their statements, they don't know how to determine whether or not the fees they're seeing that they're charged are reasonable. And they often feel very uncomfortable confronting their employer because they don't want to lose their job and they don't want to cause any problems. Well, what I want to do for all of you is provide you with enough information so you can go to your employer not only in a polite and respectful way, but actually add value to the employer to the point where your boss or the owner of your company will be thankful that you brought up this information so your employer now can make more informed and better decisions and have a much more competitive plan. The first piece of information that you need to know is the fact that the tax form for the retirement plan, which is known as Form 5500, is actually a matter of public record. You can find this form yourself online by going to freeerisa.com and setting up a free account, or you can go to the Department of Labor's website, and I'll put the links in the description of this video. It might seem confusing or intimidating to try to interpret these forms, but they're actually really short. There's a form called the short form, which is filed for plans that have 100 or fewer employees. It's only just over a page, and the fees are showing up on one of two line items typically, or maybe three. On line 10E, it shows the broker's commissions. The broker is often the financial advisor for the plan. It shows how much money the broker actually made off of you every year. Then there's line 8F, which often shows the combined amount that the record keeper, administrator, custodian, and financial advisor, that may be the broker, actually charge to your plan. So, okay, maybe you see all the fees. So what? What do these numbers even mean? What if it shows a $35,000 charge and there's 20 employees? Is that reasonable? How do you know? Well, I'm here to tell you, no way, not even close, is $35,000 reasonable for a plan with only 20 people. Here's a little secret. It's not the amount of money in the plan that drives the amount of work that the service providers are doing. It's the number of participants. But unfortunately, many plans, especially professional service firms like law firms and medical practices, have fees that are driven by the amount of money in the plan. They're not charged a per person fee. They're charged based on what's known as the average participant account balance, which ultimately comes down to some kind of a percentage of the total value in the account. That's just crazy because it's totally divorced from the amount of actual services that are being provided. Here's an example. Vanguard, a perfectly reputable firm that provides record keeping, administration, and custodial services. It's actually a company called Ascensus that they work with behind the scenes that's providing these services. You know what they charge? $3,825 annually combined for all record keeping and administration and custodial services for the first 15 participants, and only $75 for each additional participant up to 50 participants, and then only $70 for participants 51 through 100. Yes, there can be some additional charges for certain administration or legal services, but it's not much. And that's a great way to gauge what a reasonable fee or combined fees for your plan should be. So once you have that information at your disposal, you can easily bring that information to your employer and let your employer know, hey, I see a $35,000 charge. Did you know that Vanguard would do everything for about $4,000 and that our advisor only comes out once a year? Our advisor shouldn't be getting paid much more than the record keeper, administrator, and custodian combined, because I've never talked to the advisor. I've surveyed the other employees. You know what? They don't talk to the advisor either. And hey, I haven't seen any changes to our funds, and our advisor is supposed to be helping select and monitor the funds and providing us advisory services. I'm not saying the advisor should be free, but we know that the advisor doesn't spend much time on our account. So I can't understand how a combined $35,000 showing up on our tax form, which has gone up year after year, it used to be a lot less, is in any way remotely reasonable. Now, you can put it any way you want, but in many cases, the employer is going to be grateful. And you can also let your employer know, hey, maybe there's a relationship the employer has with the advisor. Maybe the employer doesn't feel like changing providers, although they should if they have your best interest in mind. Well, here's a couple of tips. Number one, employers can always, in almost all cases, negotiate the fees. And they can do that simply by asking for a fee reduction, whether it's from the advisor or from the record keeper, administrator, and custodial. And in almost all cases, that provider is going to say yes, because most businesses don't even know to ask. And what that means is they're going to be afraid that they're going to lose the business if they have an employer who's savvy enough to ask for a reduction. Number two, in some cases, the employer has the largest balance. Now, you don't have to pry, but you can point out the fact that the participants with the largest balances are paying the largest share of these fees. If it happens to be the owner or a group of owners paying the majority of those fees anyway, it might actually appeal to their self-interest to pay all these fees at the employer level, get a tax deduction, completely eliminate the fees for the employees and for themselves, and keep as much money as possible growing inside a tax-deferred account. That's what these retirement accounts are. They are much better to invest in because you're not paying any taxes on the growth. And the employer will understand when you start to see your balance grow much more versus what it would have grown inside of a brokerage account, that it's much more advantageous to pay at the employer level. Also because your employer, like any other expense, will be able to write that off as a tax deduction. So I hope all of you will take all of this information and use it to your advantage. And if you have any questions, please send me an email. I am always happy to help.